Welcome to the Thrive TV Show with Lauren Parsons, helping you boost your health, energy, and productivity.
Welcome to another episode of the Thrive TV Show. I'm Lauren Parsons, your host, and today I'm so thrilled to be joined by Michelle Segar, who is the only guest so far who has been on the Thrive TV Show twice, and so thrilled to connect with you all the way from Michigan in the United States. Welcome, Michelle.
Thank you. Not only is it great to be here, it's an honor to be your first second timer.
Yeah, the second timer. Very exciting. And I'm thrilled because today we get to talk about the joy choice, how to finally achieve lasting changes in eating and exercise. And I just know this is going to speak to so many people, and we all just can't wait to hear what you have to share. So we're going to talk about why habit formation can't work for most people when it comes to healthy eating and exercise, the biggest 4 traps to create sustainable change. And also Michelle's going to share her science-based 3-step decision-making tool that will make health choices easy and fun. So what could be better than that? So before we dive in though, Michelle, can I just ask you my this and that questions?
Sure.
Alrighty. So tell me, spots or stripes?
Spots.
Spots. Okay. Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Dogs.
Strong one on that. Strong one on that.
You love dogs, don't you? Tea or coffee?
Coffee.
Coffee.
I like both. I drink both, but really my heart belongs to coffee.
Okay, nice. Sunset or sunrise?
Sunrise.
Okay. Would you rather go a week without your car or a week without the internet?
Oh, oh gosh.
Either. You don't want either.
The internet. I mean, I don't drive my car a lot. I walk a lot. So it was hard to think about, but for sure, get me away from the internet. Let's have a real break.
Yeah, nice. And classic clothes or trendsetter?
In between.
Okay.
In between.
In between. Okay, bit of both. Nice. So Michelle is an award-winning researcher at the University of Michigan with almost 30 years studying how to help people to both adopt healthy behaviors in ways that can survive the complexity and unpredictability of the real world. Michelle's perspective is uniquely comprehensive. For her entire career, she's combined academic research with real-world health coaching to pioneer methods that create sustainable, healthy behaviour change, and which have been adopted to boost patient health, employee health and wellbeing, gym membership retention. Her first book, No Sweat, is used as a core text in training professionals in health coaching and patient counselling. And in April 2022, her new book, The Joy Choice, comes out. So, Michelle, tell me, what is it you love most about the work that you do?
I like solving complicated problems because behavior change is a complex problem. And I like the way I solve it, and what really fuels me, and will show you what a geek I am, is that I like reading about theories and research across areas, and it just kind of comes together and I get to think about it and understand how to integrate it. And so I find it very creative. And so I guess that's the long answer to your question, the creative process of coming up with new tools and systems to help individuals and the people who work with them make healthy behavior changes that can stand the test of time.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. So let's start with the problem. Can you tell us why is it so tough for people to stick to the healthy eating plan or the healthy exercise routine that they intend to do? Why is it so tough for people to make these changes?
Well, the reason it's so tough, it's actually, it's less hard to make the changes than it is to stick with them. And the reason why it's easy to make the changes, or easier, I should say, is because we're bombarded every day with messages from the magazine, from the medical professional, from our families, that we should change in some way: more sleep, meditate more, exercise more. I mean, there's so many things so those messages really get us actually motivated to start. The problem is that they get us to start and most of us stop, and we start and we stop, but we don't sustain. And the reason why is because typically when people initiate a change in some type of lifestyle behavior like healthy eating or exercise, we do it in what I call a motivation bubble. We're full of hope and inspiration and motivation, but as soon as that bubble floating around in our life bumps up against something like a sick kid or dog vomit, or that urgent deadline at work gets pushed forward and we have to work harder and faster, our plans go out the window, our hopes are dashed. And so the reason why is because we don't typically initiate a change in behavior thinking about how it can survive the hubbub that tends to be most of our lives.
I love that analogy. We do. You can just picture that motivation bubble. And like you say, there's so many things that can burst that. So what is the difference? Like, how do we make the joy choice? How do we make it stick for longer?
Well, so there's pieces to that. The first piece is to recognize whether or not your changes in the past have been like a motivation bubble that's burst, because we need to have a lot of self-awareness and recognize whether what we've done in the past has or hasn't worked. For most people, it hasn't, for many reasons, one of which is the reason I just talked about. Then we have to really understand why we've decided to make a change, because a change in behavior, again, we kind of think of it as a check something we check off a to-do list. Oh, I need to join the gym, or I need to get, join Peloton, or get that new hot exercise bike, whatever it is, or start that new hip diet. But we don't necessarily connect it deeply to who we are and who we value being. So that's part of it, but that's not the new stuff. The new stuff about the joy choice is that it's time to get real. It's time to recognize that when we initiate a behavior change, no matter how high our hopes are, how good our intentions are, we have to take our aspirations from, over the top North Star to what is really going to work in the life I'm living today. And today at the beginning of summer is different than the today in the beginning of fall, when maybe kids start school or you start a new job, or when your parents move to town and they're aging and they need help. That today is going to be very different. So we need to start to contextualize the behavior that we're aiming to change within the realities of our lives. And then we can develop a plan of action and tactics that are able to survive when things go awry, because they always will. That's the other part, is that we need to train and be prepared for things going awry, and not aim for a perfect world, because it rarely is.
I love that. It's where reality meets idealistic goals, isn't it? It's so easy for us to say, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to get up early, and I'm going to train for an hour every morning of the week. And I know so many people, they feel like, if they don't get it quite right, well, then they just give up. And it's like, okay, I'll start again next week or next month. So it's interesting, isn't it? The psychology around that.
If you think about how we live other aspects of our lives, let's shift our approach to, healthy eating and exercise, and let's put it into family and feeding. So let's think about this from a different perspective. So we're serving dinner, and our 7-year-old refuses to eat the rocket that we're serving. Do you like how I know that term? Is that what you call it? Rocket?
Rocket. It's a type of lettuce. For me, I was
arugula. Is it arugula?
Yeah, different. Yeah, okay. Rocket, arugula. Yeah, mixed salad greens. If you're wherever you're in the world, it'll make sense. Yeah.
Okay, so we're serving greens or rocket or whatever to our 7-year-old, and they are like, I will not eat. So if we followed the same paradigm as we do with eating and exercise, healthy eating and exercise for ourselves, we would say, I failed as a parent. I'm going to starve my child. I'm quitting feeding him. I'm done. So that, or we're meeting a girlfriend for a drink. We've had it on the books for a month. And, a few hours before, she's like, I've had an emergency. I can't make the meeting. I really need to reschedule. And we go, what kind of friend is that? They're out of my life. We don't do that in other areas of our lives, but we do it with eating and exercise. Oh no, I can't make that. I quit until the next time. So for whatever reason, we come at exercise and eating, healthy eating, and with such a different mindset that doesn't make sense.
It's so interesting. And it's when you say it like that, it just makes it stand out, doesn't it? The irony. So why is it that you say that habit formation can't work for most people?
Wow. That is something that I really did some research on for the book. And as someone who's been studying how to create sustainable behavior changes for a long time, the popularity of habit formation for complex behavior changes, like changing our eating patterns in ways that will be healthier or adopting a more physically active life, I've been a little concerned. First, let me just take a step back and say, habit formation is awesome, and I depend on it for things like flossing my teeth that happen in the bathroom where there aren't a lot of distractions, or drinking a glass of water when I get up, or feeding my dog when I get up. But habit formation is based on a habit loop where there's a cue for a behavior, and then that cue triggers triggers the behavior itself, which might be exercising or eating a certain food at a certain time. And then there's a reward, some type of positive experience that fuels the loop. And because of the way our brain works, that is supposed to create an unconscious habit that we don't even have to think about. We find the cue, and so on and so on. Well, that assumes that cue isn't going to get messed up by the hubbub, or that there isn't a hubbub that can mess up the cue. And so that is one of the biggest reasons why habit formation, when it comes to a lot of us, can't work. Now, my husband, who is an incredibly disciplined person, an incredibly organized person, he does everything he says he's going to do all the time. That's who he is. There are other people like him, but they're certainly not the majority of the world. For someone like him, his cue is not going to get disrupted because he's able to build his life in a way. He sleeps in his exercise clothes. So he just hears the alarm, gets up, and goes downstairs into the basement to exercise. Not a lot that can get in the way. But for the rest of us who don't have that innate disciplined personality, research shows that people who have that type of personality do have an easier time forming habits. But most of us are not like that, myself included. Those of us who have a lot of roles and responsibilities where there's just curveballs left and right and unanticipated challenges, that is just gonna knock that cue right off the table. And without the cue, you don't have your loop and you don't have your habit formed. So, I could talk more about it, but those are a couple of the reasons why habit formation for complicated behaviors, not easy behaviors, but complicated behaviors in a complicated life, is just not likely to work for most people.
That totally makes sense. And you can just picture parenting and, having multiple demands on you and your work, and so many things that can interrupt our best intentions.
Yes.
So I know that you said that there are 4 key traps to avoid. So do you want to share what the traps are, Michelle?
Yes. So these traps come from my work with clients, and they were just typical, what I call decision disruptors, the things that interfere with us making the type of choice that we're hoping to make when it comes to healthy eating and exercise. And let me contextualize this conversation on traps by saying, choice. And what I'm proposing that people start to think about is this training, is this new way of thinking about how we navigate the culprits that arise unexpectedly, because they always arise, that could or used to derail us, that we think about how we can better navigate them with a more strategic, thinking. So what we're talking about with the traps are the things that come to mind, the thoughts and beliefs that distract us and that take us away from actually being a really strategic problem solver in the moment, right when we need to do it. So the first trap is temptation. And that's the visceral feeling we might feel toward that incredible dark chocolate brownie that is, just got taken out of the oven at our friend's house, or the couch and that show on Netflix that, for me right now, it's The Good Place, that I just can't wait to see what's happening next. Being drawn to something, that's temptation. And people, it's visceral, so it's very strong. But new research, new theories that address temptation show that a lot of the temptation that we're feeling isn't that brownie or the show we're thinking of, the couch in front of us. It's our memories and the embedded experiences that we've had in the past that really, even below the surface, that are kind of pulling at us. And I think it's very helpful. What I found with my clients is that it's very helpful to recognize that it's not just this thing that you think may be pulling you, it's that you have memories and experiences that are influencing you. And only when we really understand what's truly going on can we develop effective strategies for overcoming or preventing that. So that's temptation, and knowing about these new theories is really helpful. Do you want to say anything?
Can I just ask? Yeah. So when you say it's the memory, do you mean it's just the memory of I've tasted that brownie before and it's so delicious, or it's another memory of that brought me comfort in a difficult time in my life? Like, how deep do you mean in terms of the memories?
All of the above. It's the memories of chocolate cake that you've had in the past, who you were with, the experiences, the people, the social connections. There's also simulations that go on below the surface of what it feels like to chew it and to hear it and to taste it. So there's a whole network of experiences. And I talk about there's a theory called the grounded theory of cognition that I just briefly talk about in that chapter to help people know this is what's really going on. Because again, I believe that individuals need to understand the right science so that they can think about it in a way that's actually going to work. If we think about our choices and behaviors using paradigms and frameworks that actually don't align with the way our brains work or our lives are set up, then we're not empowered to make sustainable changes. So, that's part of my big problem solving is I think it's important for people to learn the science, of course, in user-friendly ways, but so that people are empowered by how things really work, right? So that's temptation. The second one is rebellion. And rebellion is when you might have started some type of new eating plan because your doctor told you to, or because you heard about and you thought you should, or because you stepped on the scale and you thought, gosh, I really should do something about this. But the behavior change feels controlling. You don't really want to do it. And rebellion is this innate human motivation that research shows we have to reclaim our freedom when we feel like it's been removed. So phenomena in behavior change and psychology called reactance theory. It's the theory that talks about this. And so think about it. And I'll just go back to a kid. When you tell your kid, you better eat that broccoli, what are they motivated to do? Right?
Absolutely.
So as humans, even adults, we are motivated to do the same thing. So rebellion is about recognizing that aspect, whether it's true, whether it's something that you experience or not, because if you are motivated to rebel against something that you yourself have decided to do, that is just going to totally shoot you in the foot, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I can see how that can happen. So where people feel like they're trapped or forced into something, they'll be more likely to naturally rebel against that.
Yes. And, people might say, and, maybe not your listeners, because I know that, you teach people to think in very progressive ways. So I don't know if your listeners will resonate with rebellion or not, because it's kind of, in a way, it's kind of outdated, even though it's still common, because we're learning all of the incredible reasons why being more physically active or changing our eating in ways where we eat more fruits and vegetables, like there's mood benefits, there's energy benefits. So when we change our behavior for those types of things, we're a lot less likely to rebel against it than if we're doing it simply to try to drop weight, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's all about that right motivation, isn't it?
Yes, it is totally about the right motivation. The third trap is accommodation. And accommodation refers to when we consistently, and this is the key word, consistently put our own behavior change plans and priorities behind what everyone else needs, what our work needs, what our family and friends and church needs, or synagogues or mosque or whatever it is. And I'll tell you a very brief anecdote to just kind of explain how this would work. So my client went to an annual event with her family, with other families, and she'd been following a new eating plan, loved it, felt great. One of her closest dear friends brought to this, event a very special cake that she had baked. And, she hands everyone a piece of cake. And my friend, who has no desire to eat the cake, she's not rebelling, and because she's like, I want to follow this eating plan, it's making me feel fantastic. But she feels that she has to eat the cake because she's afraid she's going to hurt her friend's feelings. She's afraid that people will perceive her as not being a part of the team or the family or the group. So that's accommodation for eating. That's when you subsume your own needs. Now, there's a whole bunch of other things she could have done, and we don't have to go into those things, but that's an example of accommodation. And I bet you see that a lot in your work.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's so common for people to unintentionally end up bottom of the list. I see that all the time. And I often talk about, some of the subconscious drivers of that, why, there's always something else. Oh, there's washing to fold. Oh, there's dishes to do. Oh, I've got to remember to do that. And sometimes when we intend to, whatever it is, get out for a walk or even just have some time for ourselves, that time just somehow disappears for so many people. And a lot of that comes down to choosing to actually put yourself at the top of the list sometimes, and knowing that when you do that, that's going to actually benefit everyone around you, not just you. So I still think a lot of people will relate to that.
I think this is the toughest one potentially, but that is one of the things that the joy choice aims to help people solve, because I guess I'm going to dive into the definition here, which I didn't know, but the joy choice is the perfect and perfect option that lets us do something instead of nothing. So my client at that event, she didn't have to eat the whole cake. If she were thinking in flexible ways, if she had been using the joy choice, this was a while ago, if she'd been using that, she would have come up with some alternatives that were not perfect. Maybe she ate a third of the cake. Maybe she didn't eat the cake, but expressed verbally, oh, you're always such a great cook. This looks beautiful. I'm gonna enjoy it virtual, or I'm gonna enjoy it. What's the word?
Vicariously.
Vicariously. So there's all kinds of options. And when you learn to think more flexibly, by the way, which research shows better leads to sustainable behavior in healthy eating and exercise, is being flexible instead of trying to aim for the bullseye all the time. But that was a bit of a sidetrack.
Yeah, no, but that's so important. I want to just highlight that one more time, because just to make sure people caught that definition. So it's the most perfect, imperfect choice. Is that right?
Yes.
Being flexible, going, oh, well, I don't have my full hour to go to the gym now, but hey, I'm going to get out there and go and just do some stair climbs at the back of the property, or I'm going to, finding the other option. So just give me the definition again, because I think this is so important, Michelle.
It's the joy choice is the perfect imperfect option that lets us do something instead of nothing. And I did it today. So, I've been teaching my clients this, but of course, as I'm working with the book and talking about the book, I'm like, and I really want to use it as many times as possible to just, live it. It's not just teaching it. I have to live it. So I'm super busy with this new book, and I have a walk I like to take that takes about an hour. And I haven't hit a lot. The sun was out and I was like weighing, okay, do I go right to work, or do I take a walk? And I thought, you know what? I'm going to take a joy choice. I'm going to pick the joy choice. And it wasn't just the taking the walk that made me feel good. And, as a psychologist who's created a concept, I'm trying to just totally get inside of how it works and how I experience it myself. And I recognize that I don't just feel good about the walk. The notion that I picked the joy choice, which was the perfect imperfect 15-minute or 13-minute walk, that made a difference to me. And it wasn't, and so knowing, and that is why I branded the perfect imperfect option the joy choice, because we don't just need to think about this logically. We really deeply want to do it. We want to value this imperfect option. And the way to value it is to know that it's helping us do something which lets us continue to take care of ourselves. Yes, in imperfect ways, but that is what we need to take care of ourselves and to stay in sync with who we are, what we care about, and the people we want to take care of.
I love it. It's just, and I can so relate to that. I had, similar to you, Michelle, I'm writing a book at the moment, and I've noticed that I've set writing goals, this is my writing time, and I'm going to go for a walk every day between 11:30 and 12. And I have this 30-minute loop that's just fantastic, but I still have to convince myself to get out there, or encourage myself to get out there. And like you, on those days when maybe something cuts into that time, and I'm like, okay, but I can go and do 15 minutes and do part of that walk. And like you, one, it gives me all of the benefits of that physical, mental, but also I have that sense of I made the right choice today. I'm out there, I'm actually following, because the flip side of that is feeling like this imposter syndrome of, here I'm encouraging people to boost their well-being, and yet I'm struggling to fit it in. So, but I think being real, and often I talk about, one of my daily non-negotiables is to get out, ideally, and I say ideally, for a 30-minute walk or run.
Yes.
But even if I can't do that, we live on a big property, so I can just walk down to the end of the drive and back. That's kind of my backstop position. And I know that only takes a few minutes. So I can definitely, I can snack on exercise, which is, we first got in touch when you'd heard about my TEDx talk concept, to snack on exercise, even if it's a minute. And it does, it brings me joy. So thank you for all the work that you are doing. It's amazing.
Thank you.
So I know we covered off temptation, rebellion, accommodation. What's the fourth trap?
It's perfection. Let me just pause there, because this is a big one. This is what we're talking about. We're talking about the antidote to perfection, which is all or nothing thinking. This is the way we've been taught to think about how we should be exercising and how we should be changing our eating patterns. But we talked about how ridiculous it is with our feeding our children and meeting our friends for a drink. And think about our work. If everything had to be done in exactly the way we planned it, when I plan to get, to 0 in my inbox and I only get to 200, I don't throw my computer out the window. But that's what we do with our exercise, right? So perfection is a biggie. And the joy choice is the antidote to that. I'm going to say it again, because it's the perfect, imperfect option that lets us do something instead of nothing. And so the trap are those 4 things. And all of us fall in different ways on these four different categories. And it, again, I'm sure you talk about this all the time, self-awareness is the most important thing. And so we just need to, it's not that these things are deal breakers and have to keep trapping our choices. It's that we have to be aware of whether they do or not. Because if we can't name them, we can't tame them, as Dan Siegel famously said.
Yes, name it to tame it. And I love that. Just being aware about all or nothing thinking. And I know, in my TED talk, I talked about how we've got to take exercise off our to-do list as if it's something that's got to be in a box and I've got to travel somewhere and I've got to spend an hour, to think, how is it actually, we've got to work backwards from how is it going to integrate into our lives? And then it becomes possible. And then we do it and we start to see it as a gift, which I know is another big thing you talk about, Michelle, is that seeing it as a gift, not a chore, because it fits in and it works with our lives. This sounds so simple, but I think the thing is so many people are trapped in the all or nothing thinking and caught up from all the media messages that we hear. So this is important stuff. So tell me, you said that you have a 3-step decision-making tool that makes these healthy choices easy and fun. So tell me about that.
Well, again, fun's important. It's not enough to just know you should be doing something. We have to figure out how to make it fun, enjoyable, and joyful. So let me take a step back. Instead of letting life burst our motivation bubble, our bubble for our plan, the perfect plan that we have, we pop our plan. Because if we can't do it all because we bumped up against a conflict and we don't want to do nothing, the only option that we can do is something. So we pop our plan, which stands for pause. In order to gather our senses, in order to name our traps, we have to pause and give ourselves a time to reflect and then respond instead of just react unconsciously. Once we do that, then our attention is ready for the next step, which is the O in pop, which is open up our options and play. And that's when we say, okay, I lost the hour. I can't do the thing for the hour. So what else could I do? Well, I have 30 minutes or 13 minutes, or I could go do this now and take a walk later when I get home, before dinner or after dinner with my family. I mean, there's so many things. We could dance in the kitchen, turn on some funky music and dance in the kitchen. We could walk up and down the stairs or on the property, like you said. The options are limitless, but we haven't been taught to think flexibly. And again, I want to say this again, because it's so important. Research shows that when we think flexibly at these challenging points, instead of trying to do it right, we try to do something, we are more likely to stick with it. The third part of POP is pick the joy choice. And the beauty of this third step is that it's imperfect. And anything we choose is the joy choice because it's something instead of nothing. So POP, the 3-step, pause, open up your options and play, and pick the joy choice. And I want to say, some people have mentioned to me, well, it's not super easy to remember. And so anything that's worth doing is worth putting a little effort in. But I do want to say, I tell my clients, create a contact and pull it out or put it on sticky notes. And if you repeat it just, 5 to 10 times, you will be able to remember it. So I don't want to make it sound like it's absolutely easy from hearing me say it. But once we memorize it, and then we have to bring awareness to these moments, and that is always a process too. But that's fun when we start to look at it like that.
I love that. I think that's so empowering. Just specifically to me, the thing that really stands out is just doing something, finding that way to do something, and realizing that your brain will work against you and try to say, oh, well, you've not got the hour, like just do nothing, Lauren. But actually you can say, no, I'm going to do something. So I love that. Pause, take the moment to reflect, open up the options and play. And I totally agree that we need more play in life, that we need more fun in life, that we need enjoyment so that we're actually drawn towards these healthy things that we want to include in our life. and then pick the joy choice. And I love that you give permission for that to be anything. And when I talk about snacking on exercise, it's while the kettle is boiling or the coffee's brewing, do some push-ups on the kitchen counter, have a dance party, get up and do some squat reaches at your desk during the day. When we can integrate micro movement through the day, which is super easy to do, it brings us joy and not only the physical benefits, but those mental health benefits. So I love that. Find a way to do something and then pat yourself on the back when you do. Right?
Yes. And the thing that I've really found with POP for myself is there's something I feel like I'm using the word empowering too much, but there's something when I actually think about popping the reaction I'm having or the plan or the standard response, like I am popping it, I'm taking charge, and now I need to pause to regroup. So I don't know. So the very idea that we're popping it ourselves, I think is a very important part of the joy choice.
Taking ownership. This is just so exciting. I could literally talk to you, not just all day, but for days on end, Michelle. I love this area, and I think you're working right at the heart of something that so many people struggle with in terms of trying to adopt healthy habits and make them stick. So just want to say thank you for the work that you are doing. Can't wait to read your book in its entirety. And I'm sure people will be interested. So if people are interested in finding out about you and the book, whereabouts can they do that?
Sure. Thank you for asking. So I have a website that is my name, MichelleSegar.com. And on the website, there's a page for the joy choice. And if people are curious about TRAP, there's actually a TRAP quiz that people can take to find out how they score on temptation, rebellion, accommodation, and perfection. And that is the first step toward knowing how to overcome or to prevent the traps from happening.
That's fantastic. So, Michelle, as we get close to wrapping up, I can ask you my last question. If there's anything else you want to add for our listeners and viewers today, what would that be?
I think what I would want to add is that, what we've been doing for decades is the old story of behavior change, and it's based on outdated thinking. And for many people, it's misguided. And so what I want to offer you is a new story of behavior change that can have a happy ending finally. And it's based on what emerging science says will help more people be able to stick with healthy eating and exercise for the long run.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Michelle, for your time and for all the work that you do. Such a pleasure to have you on the show.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So lovely. So thank you for tuning in. That's been another episode of the Thrive TV show. Go out and thrive.
Thank you for listening to the Thrive TV show with Lauren Parsons. Visit thrivetvshow.com to access the show notes and discover our fantastic bonus content. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next inspiring episode.